Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of Friday, November 6th. I am Jose Otero, and you are listening to IGN's Nintendo Show. Joining me once again, the reunited original cast. We have Peer Schneider with us as always.
Brep.
Oh, and you're stealing his intro of the great Brian Altano.
I don't know what you're talking
sitting
about.
across from him.
It's always been mine.
What are you going to say? You gotta
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Willkommen.
Yeah, you guys switch.
Essa meine Gurke.
What does that mean?
No, thank you.
Eat my pickle.
Yes.
Did it really?
Yes.
I failed out of some German, all right?
No, that's, I mean, it sounds like you started with the essentials. Yeah.
All right, and this week we have some things to recap, some things to revisit, and some question box questions. So let's start off with a game that we actually missed discussing on the show, and I apologize to folks because I was really hoping Callie Plaguey could join us this week, but she could not to help drive this discussion. But Chibi Robo Zip Lash.
Yeah.
Brian, you've played it. I've played it. Why don't we talk quickly on it? What is there to say?
So it was a sort of interesting path going into this game. We heard about how this could possibly be the last Chibi Robo game. Chibi Robo games in general have sort of been all over the place in terms of delivery, in terms of quality, in terms of play style, like everything. They've been 3D platformers. They've been weird like photo camera collectathons, and this one is more of a traditional 2D side-scrolling platforming game on the 3DS. The main hook to get everyone in the door this time around was that there was an amiibo in the box, and I think that's really why a lot of people bought this game. Honestly, let's be totally honest here. And it's a really cool looking amiibo.
Nothing to do with swinging the plug and actually having like an action game, which is something people knew.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that helped.
It does help.
Yeah.
I think that knowing going in that it was this, we were kind of, or maybe we built up the expectations that it was this sort of Bionic Commando-esque, Metroid, Castlevania style.
Felt like Chibi-vania to me.
Yeah, Chibi-vania.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like it.
And then I put maybe about 6 or 7 hours into the game, really trying to find if I loved it, if I liked it or not, or if I hated it. And it's a weird thing to be, right? Like I'd rather kind of know where I live on something.
If out of the gate you aren't impressed, it's hard to kind of get an upward momentum from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was also weird to sort of pick this up in a retail box with an amiibo in it. I think this would have served better as a sort of very cheap kind of downloadable game, budget priced, and I don't really like it.
So what doesn't work for you? Because I feel mechanically it's sound, like the idea of sort of swinging the plug to hit different enemies. There are collectibles hidden in the level, which I've seen before.
Yeah.
And the zip lash, the idea that you sort of charge it up and then swing it to get to other areas. You get like these special abilities, tied to that. Held my attention.
Yes.
But
doesn't it feel loose? I mean, do you feel like when you're doing those actions, it feels good?
It is in between. It works. If it's in between good and sort of so-so.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like at some points it's not quite as responsive as I would like.
Because think about like when you play something like Super Castlevania, right? Like when you like throw the whip and then you can actually move it around. Like that interaction feels good. It's like cool to mess around with it, and it feels like there are physics there. Yeah. It's a little different in this game.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I don't think the core gameplay never really totally clicked with me. It felt okay at times. I thought that sort of like platforming along and lassoing things, the different types of lassos were a little confusing at first, but being able to do that stuff felt okay.
Well, and the control scheme was non-traditional, which I think to me set off you have to really leave it to Chibi Robo to be the game that goes against the norm for where like jump would be, for where swing would be, for where like some of these actions we know should be.
Yeah, you're totally right, and that threw me off, especially for like a traditional kind of hardcore Nintendo platforming guy. It was a little weird for me. But my issue was not so much with the main levels, but the ones that alternated with it, and that was a lot of the vehicular-based levels.
Oh, I heard those were bad.
Yeah, they were very, very difficult to control, and not in like a kind of fun way. In sort of like maybe I can master this. Like I remember playing some of like the levels in the original Donkey Kong Country Returns where they were vehicle based and they were motion controlled, and it was like, okay, this is tough, but I can get good at this, I can master this. This felt more like constantly fighting against itself and cumbersome. Now the problem with that is the way the level progression goes is you don't actually finish a level and go on to the next one. You finish a level and then spin a prize wheel to see if you can roll the dice to land on the next stage, but chances are you'll land on one you played already, which is completely counterintuitive to me in terms of somebody that is trying to progress.
Which is Chibi Robo to pull that one. Yeah.
Which is the object of most video games. It is to progress, to head forward. Yeah. So I would unlock maybe 3 levels in a row and then go on to play the 4th one, spin a wheel, and land back on the 2nd one.
It wants to be charming. Like, I feel like they put a lot of effort into, all right, and now you spin and go to the next one. But then it comes with the caveat, well, if you really just want to land on the next one, buy ones for all of the slots.
Yeah.
It's like, this is such an inconvenience. Just toss me into the next stage. I think you should have the confidence to do that. It's very cool that you think I'm dope enough to handle stage 6 when I'm on stage 1.
So I
like that there's a chance to do that. However,
why? Yeah, why? Right? Isn't that weird to go from level 1 to level 6?
Just make it. Let me choose whatever I want. Then.
It's a completely arbitrary difficulty spike.
It makes no sense.
And I feel like I see what you're getting at in that they wanted to make it kind of charming, but there are charming solutions to that problem, or not even a problem, that Nintendo's offered for decades now. Which is like when you finish a stage in a platforming game, say Super Mario Land, right? You're presented with that like mini game of like there's a ladder going up and down, and you pick a power up. Kirby, you get that kind of prize pit with the claw and stuff like that. Yeah. There's ways to do that. Even Super Mario World, where you get that rotating puzzle where you have to line up and match 3. Yeah. There's really cool ways to sort of reward a player with something just ended, and we want to give you a fun little game to play. And Chibi Robo giving you a prize wheel that allows you to have no control over where you head next is not my cup of tea.
It definitely took the air out of the tires for me a little bit, because it's like, what? Like, why? But then you keep playing. I've just put it down. I think it's a good enough platformer, but I don't think it excels in the way I expect Nintendo games to kind of pick up and excel.
Yeah. I just haven't played enough of it to really form an opinion on it. My daughter's been hogging the game. She really likes the character. I think the character is really cool too. I have the amiibo, of course. But I'm gonna put some more time into it. It's just like, my first impressions. Nintendo is known for nailing mechanics of platform games. Like the reason why I love Mario so much more than, say, Little Big Planet or any other kind of platform-based games is just the control is so good, right?
Right.
And so that my first impression was like, you can tell this is not core Nintendo.
It's not. It's not immediately apparent that this thing feels tight as the rest of their platforming history.
Totally.
And that's a bummer, because just like you said, that's what Nintendo does best.
Yeah, and they don't get enough credit for the feel, right?
Yeah.
Like the way these games feel is often so good.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not a bad game. It's not an awful game by any means, but it's a cumbersome game with some cool stuff and then some very poor design decisions that make it difficult to push forward.
Which is frustrating because the character is great.
Yeah.
The concept of the plug and everything is great, right? Like you could do so much with it.
The world is cool. The amiibo stuff is cool. It's just, it's kind of a bummer. It didn't all gel, didn't all come together.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
And it's always nice to see a game that plays with scale, and they definitely have that in their favor.
Yeah.
So then let's move to another big Nintendo game, which just came out. Yokai Watch is here. It's out now in stores. You can buy it right now if you want. We have a review up. I very much agree with Callie. We had a lot of conversations about that game. We gave it 7.2, which is good in our vernacular for folks. Some of the positives being the world itself and how interesting it is to kind of discover these characters called yokai. And just finding out that, just like we said on the show before, there's an app for everything, there's a yokai for everything, which is sort of a cute plot device. I will say, though, as a plot device, I feel like it can run itself thin because it's just the yokai of the week or the yokai of the chapter, essentially. But regardless, the world's really fun. But battle mechanics the game kind of plays itself, which is both a good and bad thing. Good in that you sort of just play this coach who, as yokai, have enough power to unleash special moves. They're called soultimates. You play a minigame on the bottom screen to quickly get them to do that while the action continues on the top screen. So each yokai has 4 moves, and they deploy them at will, however they want. So sometimes it's a status move, sometimes it's an attack, sometimes it's something else. But you control when they unleash their most powerful move. And then if they become impure, if they become, I believe the wording is, I forget. But basically, when they can't fight, you rotate them out of the front field of fighting. You rotate them to the back set, and you can then fix them and then gain experience and play another minigame. It feels very geared for kids. Like the whole experience feels like something that
it is.
If I was 10 or 12 years old, this is absolutely a cool thing to watch and be a part of.
Yeah.
I think, though, unlike and I hate to bring up Pokemon, but unlike Pokemon, I feel like
You can do
Pokemon skews so much wider, and
Pokemon
I think
has
they did
always
it by
been
accident.
Yeah, maybe, right?
Or maybe on purpose.
yeah.
It's
Pokemon just nailed everything mechanically, and just the addiction of wanting to catch all these different creatures. Like there's so many little elements that work across all age groups.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The collection aspect is what I feel really hooked people with Pokemon, because the rules were very clear. You use this Pokeball, or use a Master Ball, or use an Ultra Ball, or the special Super Duper ball.
You have this discovery built in. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't catch that one with the regular one.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas in Yokai Watch, it is a random event if a yokai decides to join you, unless it's part of the story. So in the story, you'll meet a certain yokai, like Tattletale, for example, will join you on site. She just goes, all right, you got me. Here's my medal. Keep moving. And the collection of the medals is just as, I feel, addictive as what Pokemon brings to it, where you have all of these different Pokemon you can capture. However, making it a random event makes it such a tedious thing, because you can fight a thing like 5 to 10 to how many times, and so-and-so just doesn't feel like joining you. And you can feed them, like if you throw certain food to a foe, you can entice them to join you, but it still feels incredibly random, which is a bummer.
Yeah, and that's where, it's the old, Batman, Chris Nolan line, right? Like, why do we fall? And it's like, you are incentivized to try again when it is you who failed, right? Like I remember games, like take, what was it, Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Like you get to a platform, you're like, do I jump across? What do I do? And you jump, you die, and you're like, well, that's not fun, right? Like I died not because it was me, I died because I couldn't see where to go. And like I feel like games that work, you feel like when you were responsible for not catching something, you're going to try again.
Yeah.
And like you do feel that in Pokemon. You're like, oh, I didn't bring the health down enough. Like I just need to do a little bit more. And like,
or something else.
And then you can see the ball shaking. You're like, oh, damn, right? Like, and then you incentivize to try again. And so when the rules either aren't clear or it is completely random, like after a while, you don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the only other thing I will comment on, and then Brian, if you want to chime in with anything, I thought it was ridiculous to me that this game does not acknowledge it is taking place in Japan. Like, it is 100% a Japanese neighborhood. The first place you go to in the forest is right next to a shrine, which you don't see, every day. I get it, though. Like, being American, I understand that we are a melting pot of culture, and you can stumble into like a Japanese shrine. Let's say perhaps if you live, maybe on the West Coast, where, in Seattle, for example, or maybe in San Francisco, there's like a Japanese garden if you go over to Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
So I get that that's part of life, but it's just weird to me that there are rice ball treats, there are convenience stores and places specifically feel set up like you live, like this is Japan.
Yeah.
Like, why not embrace that? And they do a great job of sidestepping it. They do a great job of still localizing everything so that it's relatable and fun.
Yeah.
The main character and their problems feel very, very, very much like something you would understand.
But they don't tell you it's not Japan either.
No,
right?
right.
Just, but see, I don't have
it's Springdale.
But see, I don't have an issue with that, right? Like that's a direct translation of the Japanese word, the characters, right? Like probably, and I don't have a problem with that. It's very anime, right? Like you can watch an anime that is completely set in Japan and it's Shibuya and everybody has blue hair. Right? Or they look like Westerners. And like it's this kind of like everyman approach where it's like it doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff doesn't bother me.
But I think childhood is relatable no matter where it is.
Yeah.
And I think that if and this is an aside, I don't think this hurts the game at all. I just want to get this out there because it has bothered me. I do feel like there was an opportunity here where kids could be introduced to this foreign culture, understand that culturally a yokai is relevant, and figure out a way to just kind of, I don't know, Dora teaches kids how to speak Spanish. Like easily, like I feel like yokai could have introduced kids to a more Japanese-like culture. And I feel like it completely sidesteps that. And it's not to the game's detriment, though. I do want to say that they pull this off. They pull it off in my mind well, outside of all the rice ball treats.
The reason why I don't mind it, and we've talked a little bit about this topic before. My famous example that I love to use is the original Goemon on Super NES, right? Where they translated the character's name as like Kid Ying and Doc Yang. And those are Chinese things, right? applied to a Japanese world, and so it becomes this kind of like it's almost like. I mean, you got the translators obviously speak Japanese and know that this is all based in like Japanese folklore and the monsters come from like folklore, but they chose to muddle the waters and have Chinese concept in it. That's not what this game does. But this game doesn't do this is a donut instead of a rice ball. It says it's a rice ball. They don't call it an onigiri, but they call it a rice ball. So I feel like it's not offensive. I hear you. You're the eternal teacher, right? You want kids to learn something about Japan.
Sure.
I do.
Which they don't.
Yeah. At all. But like, I also understand the localizers are in a situation where you only have so many windows of text to work with to explain what's happening. So maybe that was also the case.
Well, it's like when you watch Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan, and you're like, there's no mountains in the Bronx.
Oh, I said that immediately. I was like,
and you're watching that movie, and you're like, hold on, wait a minute. So why are you calling this the Bronx?
I grew up in the Bronx. I watched that movie and was like, where the heck is this?
You're on outside, you're looking around on your roof, like, where's the mountains?
Are the Appalachian Mountains that close? Like, I don't understand.
You know, it's how Vancouver is like, is like every city in every movie, right? Like the X-Files and everything. But like, it's fine when it's generic. But like, did you guys see G.I. Joe?
Yeah.
There's a scene where they fly through the sky and they're saying they're landing in Munich or something, and like it's clearly the dome, the cathedral in Cologne, right?
Sure.
And it's like one of the most famous buildings in like Gothic architecture, and they're like, all right, we're gonna jump down on Munich. I forget which city it was, but it wasn't Cologne. It's like, why? Why not just say it's Cologne?
I know. Like, I don't know. Like, especially for the audience watching that movie at that time, no one would care. And I think the same thing goes for Yokai Watch. Like, if you just say it's Japan, it's fine, because I mean, you look at the title of the game. And that's kind of the door you're walking into to begin with, you know? Like, we don't have that word yokai in America. We don't.
Yokai.
That being said, I think American kids would eat rice balls if they were on every street corner, and if you filled them with
maybe not the ones that are filled with what is named okaka, because I feel like especially the Hispanic community would have an issue with that. And then there's there's the dried bonito flakes too that probably not that many people love that much.
Those are gross.
My kids love all that
really?
stuff, man. Oh yeah.
Oh man. I couldn't do it.
But to just bring us back to the original point, the game is good. I think it is definitely worth checking out. You should know that the battle system does play itself a little bit, and if that's okay for you, and you're okay with this sort of random yokai catching, I think there's a really entertaining game still here at the end of the day, and ultimately that's something that you should check out. Or if not, if you have a kid, I was considering getting it for my niece. I had my sister ask, does she know what a yokai is, or does she know what the game is? She said, yeah, no interest.
Yeah.
But that may be, for a listener, that may be different for you. Yeah. So check out, see what your kids think.
My 14-year-old daughter wants to play it, but she's just wrapping up Ni no Kuni too, and I think she's at this age where she's discovering, the makers behind this game are making other things, right? And so she's connecting this now to the Layton franchise too. And like, I think once you discover a favorite game maker, you want to see more of them.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
So, I think she really wants to see what it looks like.
I think that's the first thing that happens to all of us as gamers is once we start to understand, oh man, that guy made this too. I'm going to go play that and see what that's like.
Yeah, like there's a talented team behind this. Yeah, I will say with Yokai Watch, it's interesting. The Pokemon thing you brought up is very smart, because that game does play to all ages. Like, I'm playing Yoshi's Woolly World right now. Really hard name to say. And it does that excellent Nintendo thing where you can... people of all ages can fly through the stage and reach the flagpole at the end and totally understand. But to like really dig deep and go into the nooks and crannies and find all the stuff in 100% of level takes some serious work. Yeah. So that has that sort of plays to all ages approach to it. Whereas Yokai Watch, I felt like the battle system was immediately not off-putting, but immediately something where I was like, this is something for a child who is still totally ingrained with the joy of repetition. Whereas, like, I mean, when I was 5 years old, we would go to the video store, and my dad would be like, what do you want to watch? And I'd be like, I want to watch Return of the Jedi, and I want to see the Transformers animated movie. And we rented those tapes over and over and over again until one time we brought them in, and the guy was just like, these are all worn out. Like,
you owe me $20.
No, it was like $150 back then. It was expensive. Yeah. But he didn't do that because he was nice. He was just like, oh, you really I have to order a new copy of Return of the Jedi. Kids, you can put a kid in a room and he'll watch Finding Nemo 1,000 times. Yeah. But you give an adult the 3 touchscreen minigame contraption things that you have to go through to complete a battle in Yokai Watch, and you get pretty bored of it after a few minutes, or at least I did personally. And I kind of wish there was an update where you could be like, how about we don't put that there? Like for a kid, it's really cool. You give a kid the thing, and he's like twirling and he's tapping, and he's like he's really into all that.
Really
but
busy.
me, I feel like I got a lot of that touchscreen stuff out of the way 10 years ago when the DS came out, and I was like, this is fun. Like when I was doing like Feel the Magic at the DS launch, and I was going through the gamut of all the I'm dancing around the word gimmicky because I really hate the way I don't like the way that word is used to describe basically any impetus of control.
Well, any change of input rather.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly,
that really gets on my nerves.
Yeah,
Stop doing that.
Stop. If you use that word a lot, like think about when you use it and attribute it to the times where it maybe works and figure out the 99 times where it doesn't and stop using it there. But there are a lot of cases where I just felt like I kind of want to just do this battle. I don't really want to sit here and twirl or crank a thing or tap or slice or all this kind of stuff like that. So that being said, aside from that, I think the world is gorgeous. I think it's bursting with charm. There are so many cool characters.
One of the best looking 3DS games I've seen.
Yeah, I think even the sort of like the touchscreen to find ghosts, like that's a very it's very smart,
very involved,
and it's very clever. It always makes me feel like there's something I should be looking for in an environment and to think twice about things. I think it's very quirky, very funny. The dialogue's great. There's a lot. The music's really good. There's a lot of really cool stuff there. But the battle system at its core is something that's just a little thin for me. So I would rather either see it go completely like non-existently thin or more robust. Like right now it's right in the middle between like it's very thin, but it's masked by these touchscreen mini games instead of just like the Pokemon thing, which is a little more involved, or even something like Zelda, which is basically hack and slash. You know.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, but I think that sort of feedback is good now, right? Like if you think sorry, I didn't make any sense, but if you think of Layton and how that franchise started, right? Like if you go back to the first game, it feels almost unpolished outside of the cutscenes and everything. It feels unpolished, like the puzzle design and the solving. And like this developer gets better with time, and I think more people are going to have that experience.
And we're in a weird, like, games are weird now, and I talk about this a lot these days, in that, like, when you leave them for a while, they change. Like, it didn't used to happen. You would buy Pokemon on Game Boy Color or Game Boy, and you'd leave it on your shelf, and you'd come back a year later and still be there. Maybe the battery would be dead. That's about the only thing that would happen. But nowadays, like, you leave from Mario Maker for a little while, and you come back, and there's new skins, and there's checkpoints, and it's like, oh, well, they listened to one of the major complaints about that game, and they fixed it. Yeah. Games evolve and grow, and sometimes shrink or dissipate. It's a very different time now. So I think that, like, as critics and as gamers everywhere, if there's something that isn't working in a game or something you're not entirely happy about, like, talk about it and speak up, and maybe Yokai Watch 2 Electric Boogaloo will have a very different combat system. I have a feeling it will. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 is done. 3, hopefully 3 is the one where the changes happen.
Yeah, to clarify, obviously on the 3DS, it's not a machine where games get patched, right? Like it is possible to do certain things, but like you have to make changes at the OS level and obviously with downloadable games, but cartridge-based games, it's not going to change.
No, but they do still patch stuff. I mean, sorry, I
know
you're going with a different point. Codename Steam, they patched in the way to speed up battles.
Right.
That's Yokai Watch actually had a patch this morning that I don't know what it did. But there are loose examples where something is either discovered that's a problem or
there's an entire section on the eShop that always fascinates me, and it's called Games with Updates.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, my favorite game.
So just to clarify, the 3 unlike the Xbox and the PlayStation and even the Wii U, 3DS is largely an offline console, right?
Yeah,
like the number of people
right.
who connect online is very small. And so Nintendo doesn't want to get into the, hey, you need to update this game to fix something very, very serious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it does happen. So you brought up Mario Maker's update, which is out. Checkpoints, welcome to that. You have power-ups that will switch places. So if you're already a Super Mario, you'll get a Fire Flower, things like that. Cool. And new event courses, which are separate from a new curated maker section. So let's tackle these separately. So the event courses are really cool because they were basically themed around, as Nintendo is known to do, Nintendo's very good at promotion. They have a Totem Link sprite that you can unlock by playing a stage dedicated to The Legend of Zelda. It seems
is that how you get it?
Yeah, that's how you get it. You just have to finish the stage. You also have a sprite for Mario-kun, which is a manga take on Mario. It's actually a series that runs in Japan. You can unlock that. And then as a surprise twist, one of my favorite Japanese personalities, actually, the host of Game Center CX, has 3 stages as part of this event. Download, release, whatever. These are stages that he played on stage that we actually talked about on the show, which was when we first started going, oh my God, Mario Maker is going to be really good. This was one of the first cases of where we finally really started to see the crazy potential of it. So those stages are available to download, and if you beat, I think, any one of them or one of them, you get the host as a character, which to this side of the world means very little to a lot of people. And I just want to put out there that Game Center CX is an amazing show. You should do some homework and look into it. But and it is very fun in that even when he beats the stage, he sings a song on his way out. But I'm very glad that part of this exists, the whole event courses. And they also have the Facebook stage focused on love, Ship of Love or something like that. Also a very fun stage, very fair, which I absolutely love. That stage did not feel cheap whatsoever. But you should check those out.
We've said this before on the show, but if you want to do a little more homework, the Retro Game Master
is part of this Game Center CX.
That game series. It's you can hunt it down on DS. I think a couple came to America and a couple are Japan exclusive. And they're kind of expensive. They're really hard to find, but they're really, really awesome games. It's basically centered around these 2 kids who are sitting in their mom's living room, like we all did when we were little kids, sitting in front of Nintendo, and they're basically putting in different cartridges and trying out different games and challenging each other. And they get video game magazines in the mail that have cheat codes and stuff like that. It's incredibly meta. It's so charming, and it's really, really fun. So if you can hunt those down, go on eBay and go get them.
Absolutely. Well, and then we have the makers list got curated, and so Peer, you have feedback.
Well, it's a lot
say.
less successful. The event stages were, thoughtful, funny, interesting. Like I granted, I haven't played all of them, but I was a little underwhelmed just by the quality of the stages
in the maker section,
and the lack of information. Like, who are these people, right? Like, I'm getting they do something funny, right? Like, they have one is the undo dog. The undo dog made a level, and it's all like dog themed. It has like bones, like they put the pipes across them to look like dog bones and stuff. And it's fun, but it's not a very good stage,
right?
And that's like some of the other stages I played. I mean, they were literally like, here are like 6 Goombas in a row, and like it's a fair stage or something, or It felt very Japanese. It felt very much lacking of context, right? Like, it'd be different if you get like, hey, Leo DiCaprio made this stage. You're like, well, I know Leo is no game designer, but it's kind of cool to play something and see what he comes up with.
Yeah.
But
I would play his stage in a
people you
heartbeat.
don't know are made up characters, and then not very special stages. Left me a little cold.
Yeah, the Discover issue that I've had with Mario Maker since launch has kind of been a big one. My main concern is that I feel like the kind of auto run, sort of like flash in the pan, check out this one idea and was stretched over the course for 2 minutes type of levels have kind of risen to the forefront. Whereas
the music, like a lot of music stages, or don't move, don't move.
A lot
stages,
of the like press right, don't move, press down, don't touch anything. A lot of the just jump once, like that's the name of the stage, and it's Rube Goldberg machine, which are very pretty and they're very cool to look at. Varying degrees of success with them, but I feel like if you've seen 5 of them, you've seen all of them.
They remind me of YouTube in a way that, there's a huge audience of kids. And, I've said this before, but Minecraft alone is like 5% of all of YouTube's views, right? And it's because people want to kind of watch these things and use this game as entertainment and watch things over and over, right? Music videos, biggest category on YouTube, right? Content you rewatch. And I feel like that's how some players experience Mario Maker. They may not enjoy the tough stages and the frustration. They just want to see these cool things and just watch and then do it again and go, this is so awesome, right? Like, there's definitely an audience for that.
And we see a lot of those, or we see the this is the hardest stage ever made.
Yeah, no.
You know, and I remember Jose and I were doing our challenge levels to each other. I made a very difficult stage for you, but I made one that like I ultimately wanted you to be able to finish. You know, it wasn't my job to just completely.
Do you really? That was really your thought?
That was a mean stage, man.
It was a mean
That's
stage.
the one with the saws?
Yes.
Yes, it was a mean stage,
That
but
was
there was
really going through your mind. I want to be fair, Jose.
You're right. It was okay. It was a little over the top, but there was a frequency and a rhythm to how sadistic it was. Right? Like, I mean, actually, it followed its own set of rules.
I want to settle this beef. We should go one more round in a video series on IGN. I challenge you, Brian Altano. This is the equivalent of a glove slap.
Okay.
Let's go one more time in Mario Maker.
I would love to do that with you. I would absolutely love to do that with you.
You guys never
have to agree.
uploaded your original stages, did you?
Well, this stage
did you
will get
recreate
uploaded
them?
because I didn't want to recreate mine. I have things to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sorry.
Man.
Sorry, Internet.
He's playing Destiny.
I'm dropping the challenge right
Yeah.
here. Do you accept?
Yeah, I accept the challenge.
Okay, let's do that.
Are we making hard levels for each other?
Yeah, let's make one more very, like, not
Are we
impossible.
making good hard levels or weird hard
Good
levels?
hard
'Cause
level,
you made
not
weird
impossible.
You made-
Mine wasn't impossible.
No,
You
yours
finished
wasn't impossible, but yours was like a head scratcher. I was like, wait, what?
I was trying to confuse you.
Yeah,
I
that's good.
like to keep my enemies confused.
I mean, I'd be curious to see, you know, if there are any other Mario Maker creators who have experience with this, right? Like I feel like because we're on a show like this, we get a little bit of a bonus where, you know, sometimes people see our name and will click on something. But in my list of created stages, the hardest level, the challenge I built for you, Jose, has by far the most plays, right? Like it outperforms all the other ones. It's probably one of my weaker levels, has a clear rate of 2% only.
Right.
Whereas like I have one level that has a 40% clear rate and some like 8, 10, 12 and stuff.
Well,
I was just
I
curious
wish-
if other people are seeing that their harder stages actually get more plays.
Yeah. Well, listening to the discussion we had before I issued this challenge, sorry, Brian, I had
that's
to
fine.
corner you somewhere.
Don't challenge me and then apologize. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I had to pull it somewhere. Wow.
I'm so sorry. But seriously, slap.
No, but it sounds like slap twice. It sounds like, first of all, Mario Maker is really just missing categories, like ways to just categorize things. So if there was a section that was just Rube Goldberg, I'd be fine with that because I know what I'm walking into.
That's exactly
versus
it.
the featured section versus other things. And it sounds like they thought about, you know, sort of sorting things out by region, sorting things out by difficulty.
Yeah.
But I feel like they didn't anticipate the directions people would take things, where it's like, oh, we want to make music stages. We want to make Rube Goldberg stages. Here are the 10 toughest stages currently in Mario Maker.
So what if there was like 10 like kind of keywords you could use to define your stage?
Yeah, or just tiles, like ways to just tag your level so that, or the community tags the level saying something. I mean, you have to put some trust in the community though. Then at that point,
I wonder if that was a kind of product you got to release it decision, or if it was a we don't know what people are going to do with this tool set decision, where they want to wait and see some of the content come out first, right?
I think it's a little column A,
Yeah.
a little column B, if I had
totally.
to guess.
Because music category, a kind of don't move category would be really nice. But, you know, on the other hand, it's like, how granular do you want to go? Do you want, you know, by tile set and all that? I don't know how much people are actually willing to search and filter. You know, like from the world of web design, I know it's very difficult to get people to go in and actually filter.
No, sure. I mean, you look at like even the App Store, right? Where if you go check what are the top grossing games of all time, you just check all games. You're not going through RPG, or at least I don't. I don't go through like music or things like that.
And the more casual the audience, the less they filter.
Yeah, but if there is a clever way to sort of present that information, I think you can train a user to do that. And I think you can get around that hurdle, but it depends on how you do it. Also, I feel like Nintendo should be incentivizing people to not make impossible stages. Like, it's not just that I should be able to see a player count, but if, let's say, 30 or 40 or 50% of the people who play the stage are beating it, maybe I get a medal. Maybe I get something very cool given to me because I am treading that line of too difficult and too easy.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I
Which
agree.
is
There
hard.
needs to be more of an incentive system, and that's ultimately, we started by talking about the new stuff that got
we
added,
just
right?
ended
And I
up
tried
here.
out. I haven't published a level yet, but I tried out the checkpoint thing. So easy to use,
Yeah.
right? Like I mean, you just shake the arrow and you plop
And you
it
have
down.
to go
and,
through the checkpoint in
and-
order to finish the stage. You can't just upload something with a busted checkpoint.
Right. And so yeah, all that stuff, and the tiered upgrade system is a little less intuitive, right? But ultimately, it's an indicator that they're working on this game and that it will improve, and that I think that's great because it's already really, really good. And you know, for all the complaints we have about, you know, kind of levels that look the same or levels that are unfair, there are a lot of great stages in
They
there.
are.
Yeah, they really are.
You just have to, once you start finding a stage you like and you look at the related stages, you will actually notice that they are creating algorithmically like recommended suggested patterns, and so you can find other great stages.
And that's been my favorite thing about Mario Maker so far, is finding those rabbit holes and kind of falling down them, being like, oh,
nice.
this stage led me to this one and this one and this one. Because I mean, it's also really, really illustrated, and we've said this for a very long time, but how just incredibly difficult it is to make just a solid traditional Super Mario stage. Like, you can go in and you can make these hardest thing ever challenges, you can make these music stages and Rube Goldberg machines, but to make a stage that would have fit perfectly into the back half of Super Mario World is really difficult. And that's a kind of the coolest challenge of Mario Maker, is sort of, if you fall down that direction and you go, I want to make a very core, very traditional, but very creative and kind of brilliantly fun Mario stage, it doesn't have to be the hardest thing in the world. I think a lot of people got tripped up in that. And it doesn't have to be the flashiest thing in the world. It just has to be fun and feel rewarding for the player that can complete it. And that might be with a little bit of resistance where it kills you a few times, or it might be just something you beat on the first try, but you're like, that was really fun. But it's not always about one-upping people with the amount of deaths that you can cause, or the amount of, auto-playing music levels and stuff like that. There's nothing to take away from those things. I'm particularly burnt out on them. So I want to see more of the cool traditional stuff, and hopefully there'll be a way to find that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to just tease one last thing before we take a break and we move on to another topic, in that I got to play Xenoblade on Wednesday.
In
English for the first time, at least for me. I had a really good time. That game is definitely, if you are a hardcore RPG fan, this is one to basically be awake for, and definitely check out. We'll be bringing some covers to the site. Just a quick version. I mean, they took me into a save file that was roughly 30 hours in. I got to pilot a Skell. It was really fun. The driving was a little weird when I was actually maneuvering, like, because you can turn into a vehicle and then take off. It was also fun to see the different animals' reactions to it, because some animals are actually aggravated by these big skulls and they come to attack. But I got to customize it. There's a bunch of weapons to choose from and customize. You have to worry about gas while you're in the middle of fights, so it's something to be mindful of. And then what I especially love is that they loaded up a 100-hour save file for me, gave me the most tricked out Skell I could possibly put together, and then they made me fly into the sky to find this one giant dragon enemy that they're like, okay, take a shot at him, and I'm just there like, well, this can't be good if this is what they want me to do. And Lord and behold, I did that. He was a level 99. And he took me out in like 2 shots.
Oh.
So even when you are the biggest thing around at 100 hours, there's always a bigger fish, as Liam Neeson said, that is ready to come get
Star
you.
Wars.
Yeah, I hear that movie's coming out. So that's all I'm going to say.
Hopefully not that movie.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, hopefully not. I'm Misa really excited for this game.
Yes, I'm a Dark Lord now.
And so hang on to your hats. We'll bring more.
When's this game
information
out
for you
in
next
America?
week. I think it's December 3rd. It's early December. Yeah, this game is coming in. And it's looking really good.
So you'll be right about done with Fallout by
next
you'll
have time.
year, December.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be right back. Stay with us. We got a break, and we're coming back with more talk of Miiitomo.
Listen.
Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Peer Schneider and Brian Altano.
What's up, Jose?
So last week I wasn't here. Brian wasn't here.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I just wanted to give us a chance to talk a little bit about this Miiitomo thing, because I heard you said some wise words. You called, I believe, Miiitomo Tinder for shy people.
Well, it should be Tinder for
exact
shy
quote.
guys, really.
For shy guys. Oh, could they wear the mask and everything too?
Yeah.
Which I think was really smart. So, we got our first look at Nintendo's first smartphone application with DNA. We heard rumblings about a Nintendo account and how you're going to be able to sign in with Facebook or with Twitter or with, social media of choice.
My Nintendo, right?
My Nintendo, which is going to be your place for wheeling and dealing and getting all those bargains because you're buying Nintendo software. Plus, you can manage your friends list, so that sounds cool. But the first thing that came to my mind, first of all, I think Miiitomo can be successful. I'm not going to sit here and be like, whoa, Nintendo, hogwash, give me Mario. I think it is very unwise to underestimate this company's ability to take something you didn't think could work as a game and turn it into a game. Like, how many Wii Musics has Nintendo really had?
One.
Exactly. Like, there has been, they're pretty smart about how they choose things, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, on the flip side, the Love Tester was a huge success at a time when people didn't think about a device like that, right? The Game & Watch was a huge success.
Yeah.
The Wii and the motion controls were a huge success. The analog stick was a huge success. The Rumble Pack, right? The history is littered with these examples where Nintendo did something slightly different, and then it became part of gaming forever,
and that's
right?
kind of my thing.
And so I have a feeling there's some great social ideas still slumbering in the minds of the crazy Nintendo creators.
It's too soon to drop a verdict.
That may have
on
an
Miiitomo.
impact.
Yeah, but I do want to say that
You
the
say
thing
Miiitomo?
yeah, not in my house. But for me, this is the thing that jumped out in my mind. Miiitomo, Nintendo account, My Nintendo, are all examples of Nintendo readdressing their online and more specifically their communication.
Yeah.
And I just want to take a minute to say this is very important that you guys do not screw this up.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Nintendo Friend experience today, where the friends list is a very isolated place that not too many games interact with in a meaningful way, in a way that is quick to join, quick to be alerted, quick to understand. Like, and I'm not trying to just draw comparisons to other consoles here. I'm talking just in a general fact. Nintendo consoles, sadly today, the friends list is this isolated wasteland to me that I once in a while check and am never really impressed by.
Yeah.
Miiverse is this great social idea, but God forbid you say anything personal on it. It is either taken down or you can't have that in your profile. Like, Nintendo is very stringent on what you're allowed to say there.
What do you mean? Hold on. Example, like what's personal?
I said I was in the press in my Nintendo Miiverse account, and that is too hot for Miiverse.
Really?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I work at IGN.
You got flagged?
Yeah. You can't have. I have a hidden bio on my Nintendo.
That's hilarious.
Miiverse account, which I think is really funny because I'm just like, even if I wrote I like walks on the beach, would that be a problem? Like, I don't understand. So,
well, yeah, or if you, I mean, obviously, if you talk about your sexuality or anything, they're definitely gonna.
There goes that.
Yeah.
And Miiverse as a platform, and again, this is not me turning this into a 100% complaint fest. I just want to get these thoughts out there. Miiverse as a platform rips you out of any game that you're in so that you can post something. Imagine you had to do that with Twitter. I would have given up a long time ago if I wanted to share something on Twitter through an app and it said, oh, you got to take you all the way out to the Twitter app so you can do this, you can do that, so you can do this other thing. Doesn't work that way.
Well,
it's funny.
I appreciate that on the PS4, just being able to click like PS4 share, and it just goes. You can upload a screenshot to Twitter.
You fill in the text and you move on.
No, I agree with you. I mean, if you think back to the Xbox 360, I always feel like the 360 nailed the ability to find your friends quickly and invite them. Right? Like, I don't
join them.
I think the Xbox One bungled that. Right? Like,
100%.
you had this native pop-up that like you could get in and out super quickly to see who was online and like invite somebody. And it didn't feel like it was taking you out of the game, even though it wasn't built into the game.
Yeah.
Miiverse definitely feels like you're leaving one browser and going to another browser, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a tab. It like you are getting pulled out of the experience. You get a very different look and feel, and it takes a while, right?
So
and that needs to be something that gets improved.
My big concern about all this stuff is like, okay, so I've been asking for an account system for ages. We all have. I mean, that's been a crux of several dozen episodes of this show weaned back into that conversation. When that account system starts, where does it begin counting? Does it count all the Club Nintendo stuff I have registered?
This is about like Brian.
Am I buying Super Mario Brothers again next year?
Scrooge McDuck over here.
No, hold on.
He's Smaug of games, man.
No, I'm thinking about it this way. Like,
he's all mine.
I did an article on IGN, and this hasn't been updated in a few years, about how I've bought the original Super Mario Brothers like 11 or 12 times on 12 different platforms now.
Yeah, we know you're Dragon Hort. You got it all.
But so where does that start, or where does it stop? Like, I mean, is that all forgotten now? So when the account system launches, it's like, remember Mario Brothers? You got to buy it again. Because I know this time around was the first time they were ever like, oh, you bought for the Wii U. They said you bought Mario Brothers, so it'll only be $1 to upgrade to the Wii U version of Mario Brothers. And I was like, okay, here's $1.
So there's $2.
So there's
I'm kidding.
I mean, there's
totally
no technical hurdle to merge accounts and get that. So like, if they wanted to in a unified account, they could make that happen.
But
that
Club
you have
Nintendo's
ownership.
gone. It's a picture of Mario sad and Toad's crying in the background, and that's it.
No,
is my data gone too?
No, I don't think so. No,
You think all that stuff's still back there somewhere?
Yeah. I think they tossed out your survey responses because you were just always answering you saw it in a gaming magazine or something. That's all gone.
Yeah. No, I was really phoning it in for the last year and a half of those. I just wanted those statues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is exciting, by the way, that they showed that little shot of like you can do this stuff, register games to collect digital rewards and physical rewards.
Yep.
The fact that they're going back towards that, I honestly thought they would never do physical rewards again.
Me too.
It seemed like a huge pain in the ass for them to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see them kind of say, hey, maybe you will get another Luigi's Mansion statue or whatever.
Saying and doing are two things, though, right? Like
Right.
they did get complaints from hardcore fans when they phased out the physical product stuff, and so maybe this is a little bit of a we want to do that again, which is kind of like the appease move. So we have to see. Also, what gets done in Japan may not what gets done in the US or in the UK.
Well, that's been the case. Like
issues,
Club
right?
Nintendo in Japan has infinitely better stuff. Europe does better. NOA and Nintendo of America seem to make more careful choices because I think they just, they operate in a way where they want to stay. They don't want to blow money on something that they don't think is going to work, which is a shame because there are really very hardcore fans out there who want that stuff.
We'll see what happens. But I was really surprised to see physical product as
Me
part
too.
of it
Shocked.
too.
Yeah.
I was like,
I mean, there was
Wait.
because the other guys don't do that. Like you don't really get that on PS4 and Xbox One. Every now and then they do the sort of thing where they're like, you've been on Xbox, you've been an Xbox member for 10 years. Or
Here's
whatever.
a theme.
Yeah, here's a theme, or like here's a Sony will send out a control or something. Like every now and then there's a cool physical reward or something. It's very rare.
It is very confounding. I mean, like obviously there are like the loot crates out there, right?
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of companies that do that. You guys had the guy on Up at Noon, huh? From Loot Crate.
Yeah, we had one of the guys from Loot Crate and Up at
Yeah.
Noon just talking about, and I asked him about the Amiibo question, about how they linked together with them, no pun intended, and decided to start putting out these boxes that had Amiibo in them.
I figured, yeah.
And it seems like that's something Nintendo would get in on because, as Nintendo's proved by how many million Amiibo were sold, billion Amiibo were sold, Nintendo fans want tangible goods. And the only way to get them for a very long time was like Jack Specific or Hot Topic or Club Nintendo.
Yeah.
Now there's Amiibo in stores. Side note, hilarious. I read this morning that the Falco Amiibo in Mexico is exclusive to Blockbuster Video. That's a joke we did on this show. That's a real thing now.
No.
How ridiculous is that?
Wow.
We don't even have
Blockbuster?
those stores here,
That's
by the
so
way.
awesome.
They're gone.
That's
There was
pretty
a-
amazing.
But the reason I bring up Loot Crate is like there hasn't been, Microsoft, Sony, or Nintendo. None of them have sat down and said, hey, there could be another tier to our subscription offering where you're getting physical product, right? Like let's partner with Loot Crate. Every month you get the Xbox box or the PlayStation box. It's gonna happen,
Right?
But it's kind of cool to see Nintendo actually doing this kind of Nintendo-based physical rewards for it is Club Nintendo too.
If Nintendo did a
What
box, it was
feels like.
$30 a month, and it was a T-shirt, an Amiibo, a couple of stickers, and a piece of paper that had a down.
People would still be complaining on the internet that they didn't get something.
Well, people complain on the internet for. I think when I took this job, people told me
People
if
complain
you
on the
gave
internet.
if you gave the internet a wheelbarrow of money, they'd complain that the wheelbarrow was too expensive. I think you told me that on my first day, or it was too heavy
Maybe.
or
He
whatever.
doesn't remember.
Like,
It
oh, this
sounds-
thing's too heavy.
Let me swing us back though a little bit to just this idea of communication. I mean, I really think they need to be careful here. Like I think that right now where they're at in the online game has set them back to a degree that one more screw up of this capacity, I think to me just kind of eliminates them in a lot of people's mind because they can't be taken seriously.
Well,
at
it's
that
why I
point.
talked about the Sony and Microsoft, and I don't want to keep comparing them to
No,
anybody
but,
because
I mean,
there's certain
they're
things that like
competitors.
they're competitors. There's
Yeah.
certain things that Nintendo does beats its own drum to. But when the new consoles were announced, everyone said my gamer score and my trophy score better carry over. All that stuff better carry over. I heard people being like, hey, I remember asking Will Tuttle, who used to work here. I was like, hey, what if they don't bring the gamer score thing? And he's like, what? No, they have to.
For
They have
context
to.
for folks, like he has one of the highest gamer scores of anyone
Sure.
who worked in press.
And he couldn't even he couldn't fathom the idea of that stuff not carrying over. And I think a lot of people at Microsoft were like, we can't screw those people over. But at Nintendo, like, are they going to hit reset on a lot of this stuff? Like, we've been doing this. We've been buying games for years from them digitally. And there's no track record to that. And that's kind of scary, right?
Think about what a great selling point it would be for the NX to say, hey, do you remember all those classic games you bought on the Wii? You can now play them on here for free because you already own them. I think that's a great upsell, right?
Yeah.
Just like the concept of the Wii U was you can use your Wii controllers. You don't have to rebuy every controller again.
That was a smart upsell.
Yeah, it's a smart idea. And I mean, I would hope that they do that, but there's just no telling.
I mean, I was
right?
playing Flow and Flower at the launch of the PS4 because they were cross-buy games that I forgot I had bought 6 years before, and they had they up-res them for in some cases. In other games, like you can just play them. Things like sound shapes, just play it across the board. But that means that on day one, when buying that console, I had a little library sitting there, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like to be able to do that with the NX is a great feeling.
At a launch, to have a bunch of stuff ready to go, and granted, we talk about it like it is an awesome thing to have, but so many things have to be lined up in a row. Like there have to be people already talking about doing this in order for it to happen. You don't just magically flip a switch and a game that worked on PS3 magically works on PS4. No. And I think that's still the case, or that's going to be the case with NX. If any of this stuff crosses over, if any digital purchases work, it's not going to be that simple, but hopefully you're getting a bunch of those. I really am just hopeful that they are very careful here.
That they're investing in infrastructure.
Yeah, and they're investing in infrastructure. And then also, like, I feel like one of the times they got communication really right, and it ultimately went away. Do you guys remember SwapNote?
Yeah.
SwapNote was this cool idea where you're using this, your 3DS to draw a picture to send to all your friends. They can draw responses and answers. And there was an incident in Japan, sadly involving a minor and an adult, and Nintendo pulled the plug on the entire thing because of that incident. Now, I'm quickly summarizing. I'm sure there are more details here. And Nintendo has always been very adamant that they are a safe space because they understand that they court a younger consumer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, whatever Miitomo is, be safe in how you approach it, but don't hamstring the rest of us because of this insistence to be very careful for the younger market.
It's really risky, right? Obviously, the moment minors are on connected devices, whether it's a laptop or a phone, and a lot of kids now use their parents' iPads too. There is the risk that they will connect with someone, right? And that's where you have to invest in smart parenting tools. You have to invest in education, that parents know where those touch points are. And I feel like Nintendo has always shied away from the education part and always leaned on no, we're not going to allow discussion. We're not, like they've always tried to sell themselves as the safe platform, right, and the wholesome kind of family targeted machines. But I think the target audience doesn't care.
Well, it's a lot.
Parents don't see that as such a great advantage to actually go and buy those machines, and so at that point you are not winning the game.
It's a lot like medicine, right? In the last year I developed crappy allergies out of nowhere, and it's probably because I live in the Bay Area and things are weird in the area.
Because you're from Jersey,
or from Jersey.
You also eat garbage.
I eat garbage
on camera.
On camera only. But allergy medicine is like it comes in, these 12 things on one sheet with this metal behind it that you have to peel back the thing. All medicine is designed at the off chance that a child will eat the entire thing.
Yeah.
But I don't have kids. And I probably won't for a while. So why don't they sell me a version of that same medicine that I can just open? Like, why don't you sell one version that's like, I have kids, and another version that's like, I don't. Just give me a thing that I can open up and take the medicine. Nintendo operates on the same wavelength, where they go, something might happen here, and I'm like, not in my house. That'll literally never happen to me. That's a Miitomo response.
Not in my house.
That's an interesting comparison. Obviously, with medicine it's a little different. Like, if you lost your medicine in the street and a kid could get to it, that would be an issue still, right? Like, even if you know how to handle it.
Well, that's
by the way, Brian, it's not that hard. If you want me to show you how to get the medicine out,
no, I get it.
Hard.
It just
you also teach kids not to eat stuff from the ground.
No, for sure. But
when you're sick and you're like, and it's a pain in the ass. It's an extra thing you have to think about. Because you're sick and you're fiddling with you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. But it is a little bit like if something is dangerous, getting rid of it is obviously not the solution, right? With a lot of things, right? We want to watch Tarantino movies. And like the solution is not a kid could see it, therefore it shouldn't exist. Right. And so that was Nintendo's solution thus far. And I feel like it's definitely evolved and changed, right? Conker's Bad Fur Day exists. Mm-hmm. That is like the most risky project they've ever backed because it looks like a kid's game, but it clearly isn't, right? Yeah. I mean, they've never gone back to that well, obviously, afterwards, because I think they didn't advertise this game very much either,
I went back and played that again via Rare Replay recently, which is like I think if you own Xbox One and you're a Nintendo fan, go back and find that because it's like secretly this Nintendo compilation they never put out. Because it's Rare drives such a truck through, or basically
Nintendo history.
Nintendo history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm floored that that's a thing that happened. Like, still
imagine the discussions that had to have been had with
Japan. I cannot believe it. In 2015, looking back in that game, and usually you look back on things, you go, "Well, that was pretty tame. Maybe I thought wrong." I'm like, no, that is really crazy that they got. Like, I mean, there's dragons in that game that are smoking joints and stuff like that. You bounce on a sunflower's boobs to get to the next. It's like, it's crazy. It's completely insane. Yeah. But Nintendo was like, yeah, sure, go for it.
I would love to hear the full story someday on how that got actually greenlit, because it started its life as a truly cutesy game, right?
Yeah, Conquer was Conquer Pocket Tales was a Game Boy Color game where he was like, I gotta collect my nuts.
But the learning from that,
then he grew up.
I was hoping the learning from that game was the world didn't end.
Yeah,
there probably weren't many upset parents. Right,
the same thing with GoldenEye.
And so, there was a way to create these types of games and educate the audience to say, hey, you know, this family, like shows like Family Guy and South Park are also not for 5-year-olds, and they're animated, and like you know, obviously media and movies and television have evolved, and like that hasn't happened yet with Nintendo and the core tools yet. It has to happen now.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it.
I feel like
the moment they are on mobile devices,
you get one chance at a first impression on mobile, and if you're serious about courting those people and them wanting to try a Nintendo experience, you have to make sure that experience is a good one. And I will say, I think that around Wii U time, I wasn't at this company then, but people were sitting in rooms saying they have to get it right this time, and you know what? They didn't. So I'm not trying to paint a picture of doom and gloom. My only feedback for Nintendo, and if you're listening, which sometimes you do, you have to take this communication thing very seriously, because if you're going to give people a limited version of that stuff, I feel like you're ultimately shooting yourselves in the foot. And trying to court people over to your devices for those experiences, for things that they can do with friends, will be a problem. This generation, games like Splatoon, which should have opt-in features for voice chat, don't have them. Games like Triforce Heroes, which do make some great progress on this game of charades with pictures and tiles, still become frustrating because you don't have that collaborative communication to just jump in and tell your friends, hey, over there, buddy. Like, I think they really need to address that. If you look at their games, they just haven't been that good at them. They found creative ways around them, and I appreciate them. But I think it's time.
Well, yeah, and things like Street Pass are obviously an example of them trying something to connect people in new ways. They just don't make it easy then to follow up and find common interests and create the parental controls that make everybody feel better about it at Nintendo. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to be on a platform like mobile phones and having a game like Miiitomo that is all about the connection between people. And so, like, I do see that as a step of things changing. I think the universal account system, right, like going with an established mobile developer to create something that connects all these devices is also a sign that it has to get easier. And then, we all know Nintendo has looked at the rise and fall of social games, which, reminder, some of the worst games ever made got the highest player numbers in the heyday of Facebook gaming because of the
Farmville?
Because of the ability to have knockoffs, right? That is Harvest Moon Online. Because of the ability to quickly invite friends and for games to go viral, and that is absent with the Wii U. It is hard for me to find Brian for a game of Splatoon, right? And that has to be fixed. Come on, like, it cannot not be fixed for them.
Yes, you're totally right.
Yeah, and some of it is a cultural issue where, for example, look at PlayStation 3's online. Like, that is an example of Japan driving the bus on how those things were communicating. So notifications, certain things happening in the background weren't pushed to the forefront, where I feel like SCEA stepped in and said, listen, this is not what people expect. If we're taking online seriously, let's redo this. And so ultimately, I hope that Japan is open to those conversations in this case, but so far we have no indicator either way. I'm just hopeful to see how it comes along.
I think that the telltale signs are there because modern Nintendo games have improved a lot of things, right? Just like even the ability to see comments in Mario and Mario Maker as well, right? Like, they have all these features now where you can feel like they're loosening up. They still have, they still have a lot of control over what gets posted.
You want to see Miiverse?
Yeah.
Come along, young pair.
No, like I mean,
we're going to the Miiverse.
The
page.
Nintendo police are scary. It's scarier than the Disneyland police. Like never get out in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, right?
Yeah. Mickey comes over. It's like, oh boy,
I'm gonna take you in. But you have. But it's scary to get slapped by the Nintendo police. Like, you posted a spoiler.
Yeah.
You know, and
you
so,
posted where you work.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to your bio, kid.
But the basic building blocks for a better connected experience are there, and you see it more and more in the newer games. It's just they haven't taken the big step and added things like voice chat that, you know, are persistent and good.
Yep. Last thing I want to point out is when we talked to Hideki Kono, who was the producer on Mario Kart 8, we brought to his attention that the limited communication features, like not even being able to sort of signal to friends when you had a game open to them so that they can join, was an issue. And he, like he said over and over, we're very sorry about that. We are definitely taking a harder look at that. I hope that what Kono said to me then wasn't just appeasement, but rather true. That this is, in fact, them sort of taking a step back, seeing what people didn't like there, and finding ways to make it better.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, well, we got to go. Thank you very much for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We are a weekly show on IGN, but we are not the only podcast on IGN. In fact, there is a new show about Fallout. So if you are a fan and you want to trek through the wasteland with Vault IGN, you should do that. We also have IGN 1, which is a brand new channel on IGN where you can watch a bunch of content, some of it live, some of it pre-taped, but it is all video games almost all the time. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the idea was to, usually when we have our live streams, they kind of, you know, there's an article that promotes it. We want to find a new home for our live content. We do, you know, about 3 days a week, we live stream games already on IGN. So if you go to ign.com/IGN1 or even just /1, whatever you want, you'll land on this page where there's always video playing, there's a chat. But what we can do with this that we're really excited about is we could rebroadcast an episode of NVC with us being in the chat and answering questions live. Right. Or, you know, with future live episodes of the show, you can directly interact with us through that as well. So first, we want to get the tech behind it right. We put it out. It's kind of a beta. We're testing it, so do check it out. We're making a couple of replacements next week, even to the player. And then when it's stable, we'll do a lot more programming that is about live interaction. And Up at Noon is a great example of a show that already takes questions and suggestions on the air and has banter going on with the fan base.
That's right. Yep. We do that show every Thursday at noon right here on IGN or on Twitch or on YouTube.
It's at noon?
It's at noon. Oh. Yeah. People are always like, "What time's your show on?"
Yeah,
like,
it's funny.
Well, it's noon here, but it's probably somewhere weird.
It's 3 o'clock in New York.
Yeah,
that's not noon.
I know.
It's noonish.
I know.
It's not even noonish.
So yeah, I do that show, and I'm also on Podcast Beyond, which is a PlayStation podcast with Max Scoville, Marty Sleva, and Andrew Goldfarb. Yeah,
had
very
to
good time.
Think about who's on the show.
It's been a long week.
It has been a long week.
Yeah.
All right. You can also leave us feedback. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a show review, or email us nvc@ign.com. We are always eager and listening to hear what you have to say. Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. You can find the brappiest of brap men, Brian Altano, at
Agent Bizzle.
You can find the Guten Tag. Wait, what did he say in German earlier?
No,
can
I'm
you
not
say
repeating
it
that.
correctly?
No.
We're not repeating
The
that.
children here, we're not allowed to say pickle in German.
Okay.
Peer IGN is where you find me, Jose.
You can find Peer there. And lastly, you can find myself, Jose_Otero, on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next week with more Nintendo Voice Chat.
Goodbye.
Wahoo.